and how that may be of interest.
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition for a number that we had a phone call about like 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah.
Can we kind of, are we allowed to allude or hint at that and how that may be of interest?
Yeah, I mean, we're at a very early stage as far as talking about it.
Curious if it's something that, because I mean, we get a lot of participation from our alumni as well. So I was thinking if that thing come to fruition.
Okay, so what I'm
Some kind of interaction,
Yeah.
some kind of feedback.
yeah.
Because I'm just asking, because I was in systems analysis, and I did a mobile health application, and it didn't go anywhere. So I mean, not anywhere, but how do I say it? There's a lot of bumpy road, and it didn't seem like there was a lot of interest or anything from faculty. I would think that something like that at that time there would have been more interest, because like I was reading up on it, and it was like the big thing, like security and mobile health and computing. So like what I'm trying to make clear is that is it a question of where the students have to approach research to get feedback, input, support, or does the research go to them?
There's different ways that things can happen. I mean, and we are trying to find ways of addressing people's needs. So in what you're saying, I mean, I'm getting a couple of things, and I may be reading some things into it. But the one thing I wasn't sure what you were raising was if people are developing something, if they're doing a research project, and they don't have they don't have security as part of it. But if you look at the project, it would make sense for security research and integration to be a part of that particular thing they're developing. Is there an attempt by people to look at it and try to bring in people from other programs like security? I think that's a great idea. I mean, here I am saying that we're starting to recognize that security is part of just about everything now. So if someone is developing an app that's in healthcare, or if we're doing something in the screen industries that really does need a security component, we should be looking to see whether we can bring security factors into that.
And get the nudge to, okay, this is maybe what you have to look at here, this is what you have to look at here, and the people that are working on the project, and then they have at least kind of a compass where they should be looking, what they should be doing, what they should be researching, and perhaps even what they should be talking to.
Yeah, that's a great idea, because I mean, people have said the same thing about business students. And for example, like we're dealing with a lot of small companies that they've got a new technology and they want to either advanced manufacturing or healthcare or something, and they want to build this new product or process way of doing something. So we look at it and go, well, we haven't been involved in business students, and business students a lot of times, in fact, they could help those small companies because they don't just have a technology need, they have a marketing and other business needs. But the same thing.
That's exactly what I'm working with right now. Is that I've noticed that there's automation technology out there in software. Not very many people know how to buy it or use it, and so there's a big kind of like smash grab going on, trying to get these people to, I don't know, people to buy products, software products, and order to apply them to sell them business solutions and collect information metrics and all that from what's happening out there economically, so that products can be targeted to customers.
Interesting. So I mean, just to follow up on that too, so what you're saying in terms of security is that in a lot of ways the same approach can be taken to a lot of technology projects. Is that
Exactly.
Let's look at is there a security issue here that could be addressing? Can we bring in other people from your faculty, your program, to be able
And
to
how
engage with that?
automation, how automated tasks would help fulfill such roles as well. Because that's the big thing right now. Is like you run your software up, and you want to have things done automatically for you. You don't have to spend overtime check for something every 5 minutes. Software can handle that task.
Okay, thank you. That was good. Any other ideas on how to or questions about research and how people become involved in research? The question about whether research comes to you or whether you come to research, it's happening both ways now. Like there are students who are developing projects, either capstones or other course work that are looking at times to find out whether they can get more involved in research. There's an entrepreneurship hub that started this year at the Mississauga campus that is supposed to expand next year to here and Davis, and it's an attempt to help students who have ideas that they think might be commercial, that they could work further to develop them as a commercial product or a solution. This hub has been developed to try and support students as well as some outside startup companies to engage in that kind of activity. So there's a lot of things happening. If you have any questions, please follow up with you can look at for undergraduate research department. We're happy to talk to students about opportunities and try to answer questions, as with faculty. So I've been talking to Nick about that just in terms of how we can better engage this program and some of the stuff that's starting to happen in terms of research and cybersecurity. And it's amazing how many, like the last week, the number of centers, we were talking about cybersecurity research and the possibility of developing something here. Today, yesterday, TELUS starting a cybersecurity center downtown Toronto, Waterloo and Royal Bank starting something last week or a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it's happening everywhere. So it's important for us to really promote what's the expertise that's here, given the reputation that this program has. So I look forward to having further discussions with you about it.
And on top of that, they've got there's just an explosion of e-commerce.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Nice to meet you in person. Finally. Yeah.
So I'll follow up with you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, terrific. Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. News. So many things happened. Like since we met last, so many things.
Halfway through December,
Right?
So it's been a while. Just only small things. So I think
It hasn't fallen yet. It's still, what is it at? Like $9 grand, $8
it's still
grand?
pretty good.
Didn't it fall again?
Just while we have everyone's attention,
Oh yeah, that's right.
we have
Second
actually finalized a date for our CTF. We used to run them. I think the last one was like 3 or 4 years back now, but we are going to have one again this semester. I believe it is April 7th, which is a Saturday. We will be putting out an email with a bit more of that information sometime in the next week or so, and it should be good fun. Anyways,
I can computer at 1024 by 768.
yeah, that's brutal.
Yeah, because VGA is all I got. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So these stories.
Okay, yeah, so first off, Strava, is that how you say it?
Strava.
So Strava was, I guess, a company that was taking a lot of data from, like, what, Fitbits and I think they had a couple of other hardware.
Third-party fitness trackers as
Yeah,
well.
fitness trackers.
Yeah.
And they thought, hey, what a sick marketing idea if we release, like, this global heat map of all this Fitbit trainer data, which, I mean, it's kind of, there's got to be some good use in there. But, of course, what security folks hopped on, is there a good picture?
Yeah, most of the stuff is in the Twitter
tweets,
feed.
yeah. What security people all hopped on was like, oh my goodness, the military people and people at other sensitive locations like to wear Fitbits and things like that. So, Alec, no, this is like heart rate monitor stuff like that. Like, but mostly it's the GPS because a lot of people apparently like cyclists really like using this software to track their tracks,
the routes, yeah.
right around places. So like around, people were able to sort of what do you call it? Infer the location of a lot of secret military installations around the world because of all this heat map data. Because Steve, Army guy, not our Steve, but like an actual just generic Army guy named Steve. Yeah, our Steve went home tonight. But like, sorry, it's my default name I use for stuff. Steve, who like wears their Fitbit in their pocket or whatever when they go to Army that day, ends up wearing it around the base, and that's like Steve's patrol route around the Army base. So people were like overlaying these heat maps,
And they were everywhere.
against the maps and going, oh, like look, here's this thing. This is probably the workout ground. Like this is someone
That's a
on
perimeter,
patrol
for sure.
around a base.
Yep.
And the internet was just full of people pointing out stuff like that.
One of the other interesting things
for
they
days.
found is that there were certain areas where they found that there were GPS blackouts in certain locations.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of inverse mapping going on where instead of having the actual perimeters, you'd see in some places where they suspected heavy military activity, there was just a blank spot.
Yep. So awesome. Yeah, not great.
Like the Pentagon.
Yes, that was just a...
Once you hit the borders, it's black.
That's great.
I mean, good for them. for doing that. But yeah.
So this guy, there was a fellow who posted something on Twitter that he wrote a fun little program that used Shodan, the big internet-connected search engine, and he combined it with Metasploit so that you could launch some payload against everything that met that criteria on the internet. And then he thought this was a fantastic idea, and it caused a massive, shitstorm on Twitter as people were ranting about if this was a good idea or not.
Yeah. So the actual app itself, as a bit of background, is basically, people said it was like a glorified Python script that basically took the API for Shodan and the API for Metasploit, and basically would pipe essentially hits in Shodan into Metasploit modules to try to automate the sort of searching and exploitation process. The reason people lost their shit is because a lot of people lost their shit. Yeah, because when you automate to this scale, and you're able to essentially launch something like this that has no real target, you just point it at the internet and say, try to break everything using this app. There was concern over that. That's all. The idea that you've lowered the barrier to entry for an attacker even further, because now they don't need to know how to use Shodan. They don't need to know how to use Metasploit. They know how to operate this number-based menu inside a Python script to potentially cause widespread damage. That was the concern that everybody had.
Yeah.
Are there... Yeah.
So it turns out this fellow, who also had a few interesting things in his GitHub here, he was actually putting out proof of concepts for ransomware in Python as well. So that also didn't help his case when he says this was for good things and good things alone.
So, because everyone in the security industry has an opinion, lots of people came forth with their opinions. Like, criticism that makes it easier for attackers to attack IoT is the same criticism long made about Metasploit. Why is Autosploit any different? Autosploit being the name of the tool. That was generally the argument that people in defense of the tool were making. Like, we've had automated attack software for ages and ages and ages. And the people kind of against the argument were like, yeah, but you just made it even easier to cause even more damage. At least with something like Metasploit, you have to fill out the hosts variable to point Metasploit at something, right? This is just generic hits in Shodan, so you potentially don't know the targets that you're hitting, right? So the argument to make around, well, I would use it to automate some of my pen test activities when I'm under contract to do a pen test, kind of falls apart because you don't know what hits you're getting back from Shodan, right? You could be hitting who knows what. So what's the benefit of the tool like that? Was one of the arguments.
So the argument leads to, should Shodan be more where the angle is at? Because right now Shodan just goes across the web and looks at webcams.
That was one of the
IPv4,
defenses, I think.
So, not
One of the guys that I didn't get a link for just put out something to stop yourself from being constantly scanned by Shodan, which isn't really a solution, but it's, yeah.
So yeah, someone's saying makes mass exploitation even easier. Was irresponsible? Yeah. Okay. Any more?
Just more the same as people were bickering about this back and forth.
Yeah. So moving along, apparently.
Yeah.
Tim came to Sheridan. Tim Cook, who's the CEO of Apple, if you didn't know that. He hung out in our lab. I like to call it our lab, even though it's the school's lab, whatever, it's our lab. With students from the mobile degree, because obviously in mobile they learn an awful lot about iOS. We don't, because... Well, no, that's wrong. We do learn about iOS, but with a capital I. The better iOS, right? Not the lowercase iOS. That was funny. So yeah, that's cool. That's good publicity for a school, however you want to look at it. That's amazing. So he lived, which was nice. He didn't like get weirded out by some kind of weird interaction, which is lovely. Good for him.
Just more stage photo shoots. Everyone throw their head back.
Yeah. And have you seen the meme of like the rich guys standing around going, and then we told them that they could have healthcare, like that. It's now, while Magdalene and Ricardo are like awesome and everything, I wouldn't ever slam them because they're cool people. This looks like that meme though.
Yeah.
Like it looks like, and then we told them that iOS was a good operating system. Like, yeah. No, it's just a funny picture, but still awesome. Yeah. Yeah. But like awesome, good on the school. For arranging that. That's going to be super good, generally speaking, for publicity. So cool. I don't know what the like security equivalent though would be. Like, who would we bring in? I don't know.
Bring McAfee.
No. No. How to get sued? Yeah, like maybe someone like Mike Kres, but he's not. He doesn't run a large security empire. That's the thing.
Can McAfee even enter Canada?
Probably. But no, he wouldn't because he couldn't carry a gun. So he
No,
wouldn't.
but hasn't he? I thought he has a criminal record.
Oh, he probably does.
Bruce Schneier.
Yeah, maybe Bruce. Yeah. Maybe Bruce Schneier. Yeah. Would be like an equivalent, or I don't know. I'm just
Head of Eco
Did
Krebs.
someone say the head of Kaspersky? Because that would be awkward.
He is an empire, a little big.
Moving along. Holy bank heist, Batman. This is amazing. Like horrible, but amazing in terms of the scale. CoinCheck, which is a cryptocurrency exchange, I think, right, from Japan, noticed a breach of $530 million worth of cryptocurrency, or 58 billion yen, if you were curious. Because anybody know if you want to like really quick convert yen to dollars, the trick that I learned is you just hack off the last 2 zeros, right, and you get close enough to like buy stuff in a store. Anyways, yeah, wow, that's a lot of money that they lost. Because of that breach. Remember the last time that happened to like a commercial bank that dealt with fiat currency? No,
No.
probably because it's never happened. Cryptocurrency, safe. Sorry, that's just me. Whatever. I don't know what else to say about that. That's a lot of friggin' money. They said that they're going to be like giving people money back somehow.
They refunded it.
How?
I don't know. They went
But like it's different exchanges though, wouldn't it? Like what? I thought it was different currencies.
No, it was only one currency.
Oh, was it just one of them? Okay.
So big.
Yeah, that's
Damn. Okay.
okay. That's still crazy. That can. I don't even know. I don't even know what to do.
Yeah. So India is another country that decided to take on this weeble wobble of going back and forth between loving the blockchain and banning cryptocurrencies entirely. So they have now stepped on board and said no more cryptocurrencies for some reason. I know Russia was going back and forth on that, and then they love it again after they introduced Whopper Coin or some Burger King cryptocurrency.
Their own cryptocurrency that they're going to use.
Yeah. Burger Coin. It was a thing, a Burger Coin cryptocurrency.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know.
We're seeing people step in and try to sort of control this more and more.
What's the method for stealing from these exchanges? Like, what are they stealing from them?
All you need is
Private key.
like the private key of the exchange's wallet if they temporarily hold coin for some reason. Because if I have that key, I can initiate a transfer to
Are
myself.
you brute forcing it or just like kind of, no, you can't.
It's usually they
You
fail
can
at
brute force them.
storing
It's
it.
just computationally feasible. Yeah, someone just left it somewhere. Someone social engineered the key, something like that.
Yeah, because it's temporary wallet is the one that does the automatic transactions for everyone.
Oh, yeah, because it's automatic, right?
Yeah, so it's an API. It's sitting in an API somewhere, and they just have to access the system and where the API is sitting, and then just
Just for the sake of 2005, there was a bank heist for 1 billion UK pounds.
Oh, okay, that's fair. So when I asked when was the last time,
Apparently not.
2 years ago.
Guinness World Record for it. Also, I don't think that that's a thing that should be in Guinness, but
Yeah. They've deleted records over the years. Yeah. They used to have like the most swords swallowed at one time record, but I think they took that out because someone was trying to beat it. No, that's fair. $1 billion, $1 billion pounds. It's impressive. How does a bank have that much money on hand? What's England? Never mind.
The Central Bank of Brazil.
I thought you said it was London. England?
It's for some reason measured in UK pounds sterling.
Oh, okay. All right. The internet, no.
are they useful?
Thank you for sharing. That kills my argument. Well done. Well done.
So there was another sort of ICO crypto scam that happened over the last few weeks. There's been a lot of those, but this one was a little bit more fun. They actually made up a few identities. They stole the rest of them. They put together the white paper and the fancy pages. I think they even also paid people to have some viral marketing and write their name all over them.
You mean you get John McAfee to say this coin
Yes,
is going
this
to be the next
coin of the
Bitcoin?
week.
Yeah.
But of course, as they do after they get enough people to buy in, they disappear. But they left them a very lovely surprise where they just deleted everything on their website and just left them with a word penis in the top left. And they're gone. There it is.
$11.
Yeah.
this one was only
$11 from
11,
investors
okay.
on the ICO.
So they didn't do as well as the rest of them. Some of them actually get $1 million or so out before they disappear.
Still, $11, man. That's solid.
Let the bank guys.
They were originally set up.
Okay,
to
they
raise-
set up to receive
originally.
6.5 million.
That fell slightly short of their
Yeah, a little bit.
expectations. I would say.
They might have lost money after the domain.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
And someone was saying like it cost a few bucks too to like, you know, initiate. Other than the domain purchase, a couple of the other aspects. Of
Disaster.
it. Yeah, that's amazing.
Oh, good, they lost money.
Yep.
As far as the bank thing goes, what about the hackers stealing money from the Bangladesh bank, but they were caught using because they fucked up the word foundation.
Yeah, that
Oh,
was
yeah.
that was
We
a
can
like,
have the e-transfer.
but that was like a long-term fraud, right? As opposed to a single exchange, I believe, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wondering if you can.
No, fair enough. Probably a lot of money. Oh, the Cisco ASA appliance had what they call a perfect 10 rated bug, meaning it was pretty easy to get remote code execute on. Like when something scores a perfect 10, then it means it maxed out the available points in terms of measuring the potential impact of a bug along with the, the ease of exploitation or something like that. So really, really bad potential outcome, also fairly easy to exploit, is what kind of gets you your risk rating. So the fact that something was a 10 was really bad. This thing, the adaptive security appliance, to make a long story short, basically acts as a VPN gateway for a lot of companies. Most people just buy this thing and they shove it in and it does all their employee remote VPN for them. I speak from experience that they pretty much show up everywhere. Brian and I must have done on every single pen test an external scan on a company and found a Cisco ASA bot. So pretty much like any company we've ever looked at has had one of these things. So it's bad. That's really bad.
It's pretty bad.
Because it granted, I'm pretty sure, like remote execute and access to the box, which means all of a sudden you're now controlling some kind of piece of endpoint network infrastructure for the organization, and you can do all kinds of bad stuff. So that's not good.
And you can bet after this sort of announcement went out on Thursday and they explained the technical parts of how it happened, that a lot of people started getting calls for incident response.
Yep, probably.
Yep.
And patching of their endpoint appliance, which I don't know how much people do that.
You
It's
still
kinda
have to have it under support, and they were very finicky about pushing out this update.
Yeah, you might not have to know how to use iOS, which it's a good thing some places learn that. That's really important. Go iOS.
That's not a configuration issue.
No, this was like there was a flaw
Free
in the
update,
software that
free.
could be remotely exploited to just break into the box. Not like you could set it up wrong, although you can. But no, this was just a pure remote code break. Yeah, apparently the on a lot of Lenovo devices, the fingerprint scanner archive had a hard-coded password to get into it to steal all your fingerprints.
That's about it.
Yeah.
If you had an old version that wasn't Windows 10, you could somehow recover that and get back in. I don't think it would have happened in many places, but it was just starting the theme here of a lot of hardware bugs.
Yep. Oh yeah, that's right. Tail off into one of these.
This is the big Twitter thread for it. It's probably not the best place to start, in retrospect.
Oh, is this the meltdown? Okay.
Yes.
This thing, because this happened since our last meeting. Apparently.
Yeah,
It seems like forever ago.
right after Christmas?
Yeah,
Or right
so-
near?
It was right after January.
Yeah.
Like a couple days after that.
So hopefully by this point, everyone's heard about this, the meltdown / Spectre discovery from, I think it was a researcher at Google, right, who found this hardware bug inside the Intel chips, and I guess it affects some AMDs as well. It's actually like a broad category of exploit followed by a specific use case of that, but it mostly had to do with the predictive execution of code that you study in architecture, where sometimes we run code ahead of time to figure out, hey, if I'm going to need this, I might as well do the calculations now to make it easier on myself. And he found a way to use that to read arbitrary memory. Reasons this is bad.
This was a fairly big problem. It was technically classified as a side channel memory leak attack on this one. And basically, if you could actually get some fairly simple code to start running on a processor that had this issue, you could start returning all of the memory from that device. And that means you can read parts of the kernel, you could read any secrets that were there, and you someone figured out you could even do this on certain browsers, and using JavaScript start returning kernel memory. And that means you can pull down any encryption keys, any passwords, hard-coded credentials that have just been sitting in memory from JavaScript in your sandbox browser, and that's a little terrifying. So after that, they did manage to patch a lot of the browsers. There were some panicked patches from Intel that they spent 6 months working on that were still horribly, horribly flawed.
Yeah, so other things that happened, like, yeah, some of the Intel patches broke. One of Microsoft's patches, I think it was it one of Microsoft's that broke AMD-based computers, which is
No, it's the
ARM-based AMD processors.
yeah. So like really old ones that are hopefully mostly gone, but not necessarily all gone. The fact that some of the operating system level patches have allegedly had big performance hits, because if you can't do out of order execution on stuff, you have to do stuff a little bit slower. So some people were claiming, I like the render, that they had performance hits of like up to 30%, I think.
Yeah.
On some workloads that were very CPU intensive as opposed to like an IO intensive load. So that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah, there was lots of good talks about going back through the sort of developments and all the processors, and how Moore's Law kind of at one point hit this giant bump where we decided to start things like pipelining and speculative execution, and we got this lovely increase. So that 30% now decrease in performance was because we stopped our processors from cheating with some of these patches. And for most people, they're not going to really experience much of a decrease. This is for cloud services that sort of, like Amazon, that pride themselves on having no lost CPU cycles. This was a bit of an issue, because when they patched and all of a sudden you're losing 30% instead of just wasting CPU cycles, it was a little bit more of an issue. So they were looking to replace hardware, because essentially that was the only way that you can get rid of this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the downside to a hardware level bug, right? The only way to like not mitigate it, but to actually fix it, is to release new chips. And chips aren't like the way we build software, right? You can't have like your hardcore DevOps team make a patch and roll it out that day, not even like in a couple of weeks. It takes years to spin out new silicon. So like we're not going to see an actual low-level hardware fix for this for a long time. The problem will persist for quite a while. The fact that the CPUs that are out there that are vulnerable can never truly be patched. Like there's kind of, like I say, OS level fixes and some software fixes, but the most they can do is try to mitigate, and as we saw here, you can kind of get a little bit of a performance impact. So it's going to be a long time before this kind of goes away. Some people were claiming that they also started to see samples of code that was trying to use this discovered in the wild. So yeah, it's probably going to get more refined and get better over time. However, from a security standpoint, it's fascinating when someone discovers like a whole new category of vulnerability that just didn't exist before. It's like one thing when someone finds a really impactful vulnerability like the Cisco ASA one, but that was like a standard kind of remote code software exploit that had existed before. This is kind of like someone discovering a buffer overflow for the first time, or a heap spray for the first time. It's a whole new category of vulnerability. So it's interesting to kind of see the fact that that happens, to see an industry scrambling for 6 months under embargo, trying to come up with fixes and not being allowed to talk about it until eventually they roll out fixes and they're allowed to say what it was and all that kind of stuff. So from a historical security perspective, that's kind of cool, right? You were there the first time they SQL injected. You were there the first time the industry had a meltdown.
And this is about the third sessions in a row where we actually have to talk about a named vuln. But no one actually complained about this time, because I think it actually did help it gain traction and people were talking about it in the right way.
And it's cute. This, that's kind of stupid. Like, they should have like worked in a CPU in there somewhere, or like have a chip melting or something, as opposed to a shield. I like the ghost though. That's cute because it's yeah, right. Like it's my branch prediction. Yeah, it's his like security beaten stick.
Yep.
Very good.
So if you want to know more about those, it's pretty good to go through those white papers. They are well written because Project Zero was involved. You get to relive a little bit of your computer architecture class. It's a pretty good white paper.
Papers. Yeah, anyways, that's all news.
Unless there's anything else.
No, not really. Hopefully that research thing that guy was talking about happens. That would be really great. There is a very large, two really large institutions that are getting together to try to build a research center in sort of the GTA. So Sheridan got called a couple of weeks ago, and asked if we would be interested in being a part of that gigantic union of organizations who want to build a big security research center. So I just said yes. And that's about as far along in the process as any of us are, any of the other institutions involved. That's it. They're just like, we just want to build a big place to do cyber, and that's kind of cool because we don't have an awful lot of space here. So let's hope that that gets realized and happens.
Also, like John is great for leading research projects. I only worked with him for like 4 months, but when I worked at CERT for a while when he was still doing film research, and it's just a really involved. But he's also like very forgiving in terms of what you want to work on or what you want to do with that time. As long as you're working towards a final research project with them, it's fairly good. So it's a great way to kind of explore different elements.
Nice.
Cool. He's pretty hands-off. Just likes to check in every so often.
That's really cool. It's good to know. And by the way, don't be worried if that center doesn't get built until after you graduate, because the other entities involved in the project are not necessarily academic institutions. So the place will likely accept people from industry or people doing postgraduate work as well. So you will likely be able to go there and participate in your future if you want to, if the thing happens. So that's good news.
My last request is, before everyone heads off to the bar, is that if you do want to help out with the CTF, please come talk to myself or any one of the execs in the club so we can get this started. I think we're only like 10 weeks away now because this is a fairly short-term thing, so we're going to get that rolling in the near future.
Yeah. Oh, I have a second last thing that would come before his last thing that he said. So there's no good academic journal in Infosec. This does not exist. The closest thing that we have is like IEEE Security and Privacy, but it only comes out like twice a year, and the articles are okay, but there's like 5 articles per issue, so it's not great. So there are some people out there who are interested in starting some kind of a journal, but they don't have people to work on it. If you don't know what running a journal entails, it'd be like people submitting papers and getting it reviewed and kind of putting it together and getting it to some institute to publish. So one of the things that I was hoping to talk to the school about is if Sheridan could sort of manage that. So if I get them to okay that, maybe I'll bug everybody if they want to help me read papers, or if we can find people to assist us in doing that, that would be cool. Because we don't have a journal in this industry, so you know how hard it is to stay up to date. You have to come here to this, and you have to like watch talks. It's a lot of work, right? Yeah, you have to like follow Twitter like all day long. That's really hard. So yeah, all right.
Cool.
That's it.
CTF? CTF? Whoever wants to Oh yeah, and Lisa, sorry very much. He did feel really bad about having to cancel so late. He got wrapped up in the work thing. But we like Lee because he comes and talks all the time, so we don't harbor any ill will towards him for that, because he'll probably come back sometime soon. So anyways, he says sorry. Huh? Oh, probably should. Yeah.